Hey everyone, it's Micah here. I'm talking for beginners, intermediates, but really, I mean, I think maybe anybody could benefit from just a different angle on something, especially when it comes to something like the guitar, which has a lot of different experiences, different levels of, technique and styles and musicality, right? General musicality, the ability to make something really sound good or interesting, if maybe that makes sense, right? To create harmony or interesting or intriguing sounds, right? To create a mood, a theme, tell a story, maybe even, right? That's my opinion what music's about. We're on the technique is an element, but being able to take it to the level of making sure that what we're playing is something that people would want to listen to in terms of like the sounds and even the songs, the full songs that we actually might create. So anyway, I'm just talking about here for a moment a few finger exercises, and we can do a few different kinds. I'm just playing through some scales here, and you want to do some basic finger exercises. It's not like I'm the best guitarist or anything like that. Certainly not even close. But I can show you some basic finger exercises that I personally have used to help me increase my dexterity and speed and maybe some accuracy to at least some level, right? Beyond what I first, when I started, if that makes sense, right? Now, so for you, if it helps, great. If it doesn't, then move to someone that's more advanced or something. But like I said, you might want to listen in for a few minutes and see some of these exercises. And of course, I think many guitarists know about basic exercises like, maybe some different modes and scales. And of course, this 1, 2, 3, 4 type of simple I'm not doing it real accurate, but the idea is to get to where you can do it accurate and fast at the same time. And in order to do that, we want to start out on focusing on accuracy by going slow, right? So with an exercise, even just a simple exercise, I might go, I'm doing an alternate picking over here, typically, most of the time. So I'm going down and up when I'm playing the next note. It's like, right? So if I'm playing notes, I'm going down up with my picking, right? Sometimes I have my fingers down here to give me a bass, which I think a lot of guitarists probably use that, but then also sometimes I'll be playing, pivoting the wrist up here. It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm trying to play something fast or more controlled, I might do this wrist pivot area and using some of my fingers here to kind of give me more close-up technique, and so. And then, I'm playing with the wrist there for a minute. It gives me a certain style. I can even, if I want to practice going faster, to play like fast, riffs and stuff, and maybe a little harder on an acoustic steel string, but especially when you're playing the electric, but practice doing them on both, right? So you can get a feel, because you can see I'm a little off right here, just playing. But if I do it slow at first, and really, like if something feels like it's tough to pull off, technique or timing wise, or with the clarity of your notes, or you're not, getting a good clear note when you're fretting over here, you want to really slow down and focus, very, not like super slow, obviously, but slow enough to where you're able to really make sure you're getting a good accurate or clear picking or fretting, right? So, if I'm sitting here trying to play this one note a bunch of times, like fast, it might feel awkward at first when you're a beginner guitarist. It's probably most likely going to feel awkward, like definitely trying to do it, right? Or doing it like this with your fingers down here on the guitar plate here, the scratch plate, whatever it's actually called. I don't know every part, but the idea here is to give yourself some leverage and something to focus on so you can keep your hands accurate while you're doing those finer moves like that tight, just quick. You want to kind of loosen up while you're doing it, but you're still going to be trying to be controlled. You're going to feel you're trying to, but you don't want to go too tight, like you're really clenching just to make these notes, you know, kind of relax at the same time, if that makes sense. So. Now, I would start out slow, especially for a beginner or intermediate or really anybody just warming up. Really, you know, sit there and go like, you know, like maybe something more like. Just get real good at that. You can go a little slower if you want, but you kind of get into a certain tempo. Maybe you want to play with the metronome if you have one, and if you don't, maybe get one. It's good to have. I have one somewhere, but at the moment I don't have it, but it just keeps the timing for you to an exact timing, helps you get a good sense of timing and certain beats per minute timings and so forth. It helps you get a sense for that, and it's good to try to get a sense for that. But like I say, just for the practice sake here, you're just taking a note and playing one note and trying to really kind of just get some speed, but starting out slow to get accuracy first. So really, I don't want to jump ahead myself even saying that. Just start out with slow, like, and make sure you're playing the note clearly. Your timing, you're getting a good sense of the timing that you're playing at. And you know, you might be a little off, whatever, but you get generally pretty consistent with your timing. You can start doing that at a certain slow pace, and then you're gonna speed it up. So you're gonna go like, maybe do that 8 or 16 times, like we just did it 8 times. Let's do it again here. Gradually speeding up. Maybe do it longer on each one to kind of really get used to each speed or tempo you're trying to go at right here. And then once you get steady with that, you know, you get more like used to doing it perfect, if you will. And then you can speed up even more. Try to control it, but relax at the same time. And I'm not playing it perfect, but I'm trying to give you the idea. And, you know, as far as what note you're playing, you know, that could have an effect as well, because if you're playing up here, the string might feel just a little different than if you're playing it open. When you're plucking it, it might be vibrating at a little wider than if you're just fretting up here. It might be a less you know, so it might feel just a little different. Try it at both, you know, maybe if we're on the 12th fret, you know, whatever speeds, and work your way up, and then at the 7th fret, and do it on different strings too, right? So this low E string here, it's going to feel a bit different from trying to do it on a B or E string down here, like especially with this plucking hand, because the way the pick is going to be striking the string and the type of string, and this string here don't have any coils on them if you're on the steel string, right, or most any string, so you know it's going to feel a little different, right? If you're doing a lot of it on the E and A strings, for example, it's going to probably chew through your picks a little bit. You want to have good picks that don't wear out too quickly, maybe a few, you know, slightly harder medium picks, you know, not too, I don't necessarily, you know, I'm not taking, you know, like a jazz pick or something like that, you know, like they're very firm or thicker pick can, you know, has its own benefits maybe if you're playing like electric guitar, but for the acoustic, I recommend, you don't want to break your strings necessarily either, so I recommend a good medium, between a medium and a hard pick most of the time. You know, a thin pick's going to wear out too fast. It's not going to give you the action you need when you're playing the strings, probably in most cases, I don't think. Right now, if you're playing like, you know, like a nylon string or something like that, maybe a lighter pick is more in order. But if you're playing like a steel string like this, or probably most of the time electrics with heavier gauge strings, you're going to want a thicker pick, right? But not so crazy that it doesn't have any flexion. You want to have some flexion in it. So it's, you know, in my opinion, you know, I'm not saying not try other things and other things aren't, you know, better. This is just my personal general preference and opinion overall, especially with like an acoustic like this. You want to have, these aren't like necessarily heavy gauge strings. I think they're .11s if I'm correct. I could have 13s on there, but you know, it's a thicker set of strings, and be a little harder to play on the acoustic, right? You can do it. It might have a thicker, heavier body sound, but it's probably going to start hurting your hands if you want to play, like if you want to play bar chords, you know, stuff like that. So you want to have some strings that are manageable on a steel string acoustic. I recommend going with the maybe 11s at the heaviest. So it can still give you good sound. Now you might be able to get something a little lighter, like a 10 or something like that, but you know, strings might break more often, stuff like that. So this is my opinion. Maybe leave a comment if you're watching. I certainly invite you to let me know what kind of strings you prefer. You know, maybe your acoustics or electrics if you're listening in, if you're more experienced, especially, of course. But maybe let me know what you've been using, what your experience has been with them. So anyway, but like you said, doing this exercise right here is just a simple, you know, way to start building up some general picking speed, you know. And you're starting out slow, typically, like have the patience to start out at a slow, even tempo. That's going to help you get your overall timing. Maybe practice plucking with the palm on the bridge to get that kind of technique, and then also practice plucking it with your fingers on the base of the guitar here on the plate to give you that kind of picking technique, right? So kind of doing it both ways, like here, if I'm doing it with my fingers down here, I'm doing it like that. And I might be kind of towards the middle here, towards the sound hole here, or I could be kind of closer to the bridge to get a different, less timbre. Like if I want more of a timbre and a resonating sound that sounds out more, I'm going to pluck it closer in here. And if I want something that's a little tighter, a little bit more muted, muffled, I'm going to pluck it over here. So you hear it's like sharper, but it's kind of more of a cute. It's not going to ring out like if I'm over here. Here has a little bit more like kind of a more softer sound. It's not quite as sharp, but it rings out more. So practice playing around the different parts of the string to get a feel. Right, so you might want to play a chord like over here, and then go over here and then play some, you know, riff that's kind of got, you know, you want a little tighter sound on it over here to give you some contrasts, right? Anyway, that's just some extra, you know, rambling, but I'm just talking about these basic finger exercises, like this simple plucking technique here. And going up and down with your plucking, gotta really use what we call alternate picking. And that's the reason why you want to start slow, because you're not trying to, you know, you're trying to get a perfect feel for it. Like, you know, guitar is an extension of yourself, if you will, right? You're like trying to get really good at playing the guitar, and, you know, so you can play more, you know, accurate sounds when you're playing your scales. I'm not claiming to be like the best. I'm just trying to give you some perspective on what it will help you do with a little practice if you're not already, you know. I know there's people at all levels, so don't think I'm trying to say, oh, this is so great, but you can start playing through some keys and scales better when you get to that point, or maybe you already know a couple of scales, but you're not necessarily super great with picking yet. And also fretting, because this really practicing both by doing that. You're holding a note down for a while, you're making sure you're getting a good clear sound, you know, trying it on different strings, doing it slow at first where you can, that way when you speed up you're going to have less mistakes, and then you're going to practice for a little bit, and then you're going to take a break, or the next day you're going to play it again. You're going to do repetition, right? Repetition and giving it a break between, but coming back and trying it for a bit, doing some other exercise. Maybe like, you know, this is just one, right? Picking and fretting, simple, really simple, but main thing is to build up your picking accuracy and speed and dexterity and clarity. And, you know, sometimes you do it more relaxed, trying to get more kind of, and then other times you're more like controlled, you know, or so you're kind of, that's not the best, but the idea is maybe you can get some, like, you know, the faster tempos, and maybe even shred a little bit, like especially on your electric right? Because you'll be able to play even better on your electric when you, especially if you have an acoustic. I recommend practicing a bit of this stuff on your acoustic because you get better at picking, get more clearer notes and better picking on the acoustic. Then when you go to the electric guitar, it's going to feel like kind of more like butter, right? I'm sure many people would agree. If you're listening in, maybe you know what I'm talking about, but that's why I recommend kind of practicing a bit on an acoustic if you have one, and the steel string is what I'm really saying, because it's going to strengthen up your fingers. And it might make them a little, like I said, don't overdo it if you're feeling like sore in the wrist from playing too many bar chords or something. Don't go crazy, but practice little exercises like this picking exercise I just showed you, right? And try it at different pitches. See what it feels like to do it with your finger on the 12th fret or the 8th fret or down here on the 2nd fret, right? For us, some different strings. But then also, practice slides too. So, and try to do different, to different frets, because a lot of time we think, oh, well, we know how to do a slide, no problem. But we want to practice going like to certain intervals. You want to go right to the 12th fret. I want to maybe practice that a few times because I'm not maybe even used to that one thing very much. Like sliding up, maybe from a 5th fret to the 14th fret or the 14th fret. Like, I want to go right there. Maybe I want to practice that, get it good, solid, smooth, or maybe go down a fret each time. Like maybe I'll start out at the 3rd fret here, and I'll keep starting at the 3rd fret, but I'll try to end at the 14th fret. Let's try. I'll probably not even do it that well. Like it takes practice a little bit to get better and better, right? So there's the 14th fret. So and then 13th fret. Let's try the right. Then 12th. And it might seem redundant at first, or maybe you're already pretty good at it, but maybe doing it really a few times. All of a sudden you start noticing some different effects in your soloing. Because all of a sudden now you're doing some more little slides and more intricate stuff than you did before, because now your practice really kind of going, all of a sudden that comes out in the riff, and now it sounds, wow, I never really did that before, right? So I recommend trying everything, right? Trying everything. And this is my personal opinions, right? So like I say, not being close-minded about, oh, we don't need to do that, or, a little simple exercise. Some of the greatest guitarists recommend that simple exercises, just that, right? And many guitar teachers will recommend learning, because it's not something like you need to learn a lot to do. It gives you practice in your dexterity and speed, like these exercises I just showed you. But there's just like a 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do it on any string. You can start over here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, I think most guitarists already know about some simple stuff like that right there, and maybe even know a key or a scale or something like that or more. But I recommend learning all the modes. So when we take those modes, just remember they move them up and down. Same thing with the chords, move them up or down to go make a different version of the same chord. Like if I'm playing G, this is F sharp, right? So if we know our 12 note pattern, that's the main thing. Going back to that, that's going to give you a little more in the theory and so forth. But the idea here is to give you some different ideas for, like, slides, right? And practicing different from, like, maybe play a note and then do it, or do something, do something you haven't really done that many times. Try to do it a few times, get good at it, and you'll get better at it when you're playing, right? Or just different stretches. Maybe I'll go from the 5th fret down to the 10th fret on the next string and try do that down each string. Just that one little thing helps me to warm up on some stretching right there, and you can even go a fret more if you like. Depends on where you're at, because the frets are obviously wider over here. But and maybe you have some particular exercises you do now. I mean, like I said, feel free to leave a comment and let me know if it helps to even think about some of the most basic finger exercises. And don't underestimate them, because I think most guitarists really are not necessarily obviously many pros are going to be really doing all kinds of stuff. But intermediate guitarists could really benefit from just sitting down there and doing a simple plucking exercise like that a good number of times and practicing and going back to it. not forgetting and putting a daily reminder or something like that. And of course, coming back to this channel and liking and subscribing. Of course, I welcome you to do that. Of course, and maybe checking out some of these other videos that I have. And of course, there's many mentors like on YouTube and many other places on the internet and so forth, and probably in your local town. Maybe you need someone to give you some personal direct lessons to get you up to speed on a few basics. But honestly, most of them are right here if you're online, and all you need to do is just say, hey, I'm going to take a focused intentional action to learn something new each day, each session. I'm going to give a practice session for at least 20 to 30 minutes. Maybe I'm going to go longer, but I'm going to start with something I know I could do every day, even if it's just 10 minutes, right? Then a lot of those times you're probably going to feel like sitting down for 30 minutes or an hour, or however long you may like to jam. Some people like to jam all day, right? I don't know if I can jam all day. I mean, get a little bit like, yeah, I got to do some other stuff. But of course, I like to jam because it's the more you are playing and trying to freelance and come up with sounds, the more in tune your ear is going to become. Right? You're going to maybe learn some more scales. That's going to allow you to take those techniques you're learning by picking exercises like we just did and turn them into some actual harmonious melodies, because you'll be learning the keys. And that doesn't mean you should discount using your ear to learn by ear, right? But if you know the keys, it's going to help you. But like I say, when you're learning by ear, that means you might be listening to a song and trying to learn the bass line to the song and trying to pick up the bass notes and say, what's the lowest notes in this song, the lowest bassiest notes in the song, what's the bass line sound like? Let me hum along to that bass line. Whatever that bass line is sound like, try to hum it and and internalize it and try to find those notes on the guitar. Just hummed, because I can sense what the interval was. I can get better at that, going back and forth, playing notes on the guitar, and then try to match them with your humming of your tone of your voice best you can, and then hum a note and try to find it on the guitar. Right? Take a stab at finding that note, like it's an E note, right? C sharp, right? So I'm kind of trying to just randomly hum a note and hold it steady, and then try to find that note in the guitar and do the same thing with the notes but the thing about that is it's helping you to learn songs by ear better, because then when you hear a note, you can sometimes you might have a hard time finding it on the guitar right away, especially like a beginner guitarist or someone who's never played by ear or whatever. But then you start internalizing it by just humming the note. Now it becomes easier to find the note on the instrument, right? If that makes sense. So, like, hum the notes that you play, not every note, but just like, like I'll play this A note. And I might be totally off at first. You got to calibrate yourself, get yourself, like maybe you're singing or playing something in a different key and it feels a little awkward, or now moving into a different key, something like that. And really I want to do it longer and like slower, like to where you're holding a real steady note for a while and sustaining it, ideally. That way you internalize the steadiness of that note. You're keeping the humming in your inner ear, getting in tune to that note really good. And like just taking that A note, for example, right, and hold that note maybe for a while, and maybe if you're short on breath or something, it might feel a little awkward. It might feel like you're having a real hard time holding it steady. Maybe you're experienced singing and so forth, it's not as hard for you, or you're doing vocal exercises, but if you haven't ever, it might feel a little awkward, especially if you're not familiar with singing much. But I recommend trying it, because it's something, hey, like anybody, I think for the most part, can develop their ability to their ear, right? Their ear, the ability to but match tones, right? So a time. And matching along, that's a simple line that gets me kind of on tune if I try to, you know. Right, I can't really overstate that enough, how important that is for someone who wants to be able to learn songs by ear. And someone who wants to be able to just, like, you know, maybe hear a line in their mind, like you're thinking of a musical idea, and then you want to be able to emulate it or put it on the guitar. Like now you're humming it, like you're thinking about it in your mind, and now you maybe hum it to yourself a little bit, like dun, 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 whatever it is you're thinking about. And then now that you hummed those notes, you try to remember what each note, like especially like the beginning starter note, and then from there, if you know the thought, you can find the other notes. But the first, like dun 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 dun, like something like, right? So I can dun 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 dun, and I can, right, and I can do play, try to find a voicing for it on the guitar. Maybe I need to play it in some different, to get a maybe a better or slightly more unique sound out of the riff that I'm going to try to do. Whatever it is, it's not really the best example, but you get the idea. Maybe you're thinking about a lead line. Think about something in your mind, and then maybe try to turn it into something, right? You know, or think about the bass line of it, because that's kind of one of the simpler, oftentimes the simpler parts of a song. You know, you're listening to the bass line, oftentimes it might be like, you know, it might be just something like that, right? You can hear that, you can hum that, boom, 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 and then you can find it on the guitar, right? And practicing that a lot. If you want to be able to, like, hear a song like right from the radio and be able to, like, all of a sudden you know the chords, and then you're learning the lead line, and you know what key it's in pretty quick. You want to do a lot of that, what I was just talking about, right? It's very important to developing. Oh, sorry, I have a bird. If you know, maybe you already know that because you watched another video or something, but he likes to interrupt. But regardless, the bottom line is, like, I'm talking about developing your ear, right? If you're a beginner or intermediate, but even more advanced guitar players, maybe many guitar players are very, you know, technique based. They've learned a lot of stuff and everything, but they never really sat down and really focused on training their ear a bit, you know, and really trying to hum and internalize and match notes better. Right, so let me know if you do any of those kind of exercises, or if you play songs or learn songs by ear. What do you feel like is what do you feel like was some of the most valuable exercises for you to do? Maybe, you know, I mean, I know there's probably maybe a few other ones. Like, there's different things you could do, and practicing intervals, right? Like, you know, hey, knowing that this A, if I'm in the key of A major, a fourth note is a D, right? So A and D, I might play those two and, like, say, hey, well, that's a major fourth interval, because D is the fourth note in the key of E major. And you might not even know that yet, or totally understand things about keys or modes or scales. But the main point is that I'm trying to get used to this interval of notes from A to a fourth, or maybe a fifth, which would be this note over here on the 12th fret. Trying to internalize that, and like I said, practice them longer. You know, I haven't really been practicing them as much as I should, but I do regularly do that kind of practice to help internalize notes better, right? To help me be able to play songs by ear better. And, you know, like I said, you're going to, at first, in many cases, for many people who are not, like, you know, experienced with music, but even people that are pretty experienced, a lot of times, in my opinion, overlook some of the simplest stuff like that, right? So, anyway, some finger picking, you know, some ear training ideas there, some of the simplest stuff I could think of to give, you know, someone almost any level that might just be able to take them back to a calibration point, if you will. and just be able to help you get back to a starting point in terms of maybe your technique. Even if you've been playing a bit, maybe you just need to sit down and practice your plucking a bit. And also different string changes, you know, even if you don't know a scale, just like doing, you know, this right here, and doing it, or, you know, doing it backwards. And if you haven't done that a bit, and like I said, do it slow at first. So you're picking the way you're meaning to pick. You probably will generally feel what you should be doing. You're trying to do alternate picking as much as possible. So back and forth, just, you know, so I'm going down, up, going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And then if I'm going back and down and back, I'm going down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So I'm kind of, depends on if you're repeating the whole cycle or you're just going back from the last note. Maybe you get the idea. So anyway, this is just a few ideas here for you, and especially for a new beginner guitarist. You know, maybe you know, try a few of these. Let me know if you notice some improvements. And you go back and check out some of my other videos. They have some quick tips to help you get, you know, a little bit of a feel for identifying notes on the fretboard, right? Building up more speed and dexterity, and learning how to find the keys of a song, the key of a song, or sometimes the keys, because sometimes a song will change a key in the middle of the song. So you want to learn about the keys and the scales and the modes, but don't feel overwhelmed at first. They're actually in many ways simple when you look at it from the big picture, right? So Bezo. So anyway, that's just you know, a few minutes. Maybe it'll, you know, give you something to work on for a few minutes. It's not like, but experiment. Like, don't just restrict yourself to that. Try to think of some different finger exercise that you've never done, or, you know, all kinds of different little movements, but stick to one for a few and practice getting it to where it's kind of smooth. The next thing you know, you'll find that you're playing, I think you'll find. And let me know what you, you know, if you enjoyed this video. Like I said, like and subscribe. Of course, welcome that. And by all means, leave a comment. Let me know if you got some value at it. Thanks so much for listening.